Hey guys, we are back on the Red Room. Sorry, we took a couple weeks off. I got a little case of melanoma and I had to do slicing and dicing in my back, so I kind of just like checked out a little bit. So you haven't seen us on here in a couple weeks, but we are back. We next week we will be at the live at the Phoenix RIA event. We got Steve Train coming out talking sales system. So if you want to get out and network, that's at Orange Tree Country Club. But yeah, we are Luke and I are going to jump on today. We're going to talk about novations. I'm going to jump into the market just a little bit. Inventory has just slowly creeped up. Generally doesn't happen in March, but we started with 1,100 actives in January. We're like at 16,700 actives. So we're kind of up 10%, in a spring market. So, I mean, I don't know what Luke's going to tell you. I can tell you that things on the wholesale basis aren't just flying off the shelf like they normally would be in March. They're moving. Don't get me wrong, but they're just not. They're not the normal March. I'll throw it out there and it'll sell.
Right, exactly. What do you think that mainly is, Chris? Do you think that's mainly interest rates, or do you think it's election, or do you think it's a combination, or?
So I think so. We saw that the interest rates kind of ticked down right there at the beginning of the year. Actually, a little bit forward in December, we got rates stack. I mean, FHA was touching under 6 and conventional was 6. And, now we've ticked back up, about a half a point just because, the CPI wasn't that good. Guess what? CPI came out again today and higher than expected. So, every guru was out there at the end of last year, beginning of this year, 6 interest rate cuts before the election. That's right. We haven't seen one. We're probably not going to see one this next 2 rounds because of just the CPI that just came out. So that leaves you 3 opportunities to have interest rate cuts before the election. Now, don't like to get into anything too political, but if they drop the rates right before the election, doesn't that kind of say you're trying to buy votes? I'm just asking. I
would agree. I would agree with that statement.
So, you're going to have 0 interest rate cuts anytime before May. You might get some in the summer, maybe, but you're probably interest rates are at probably 7 right now. I don't think you're going to see them come down anytime soon. So, I think we're going to have a slower spring, and then we might even have a slower fall than I even anticipated. I've been saying for, all the episodes this year for sure saying, hey, the fall will be slower. Yeah. And we're already seeing it a little bit in the springtime. So, this could be our slowest year in real estate in the Phoenix market in since 2008 and 9, maybe, just to put it out there. So,
and that's going to terrify a lot of people because obviously 2022 and 2023 were a little were slow as well. So,
but the great thing about 2022 and 2023, you had a massive spring, right?
Yeah,
and then you had a slow fall, right? Now you could have a relatively slower spring with a super low fall.
Just a dead fall.
Yeah, so if inventory creeps up any higher, you could see the highest inventory that we've seen in 7 or 8 years. I mean, if we hit 20,000 actives, that's going to be a number that's we're at the highest spot in 7 or 8 years. So definitely
right. Oh, absolutely.
So that's a little update on the market. Now let's talk about novations. We've implemented this in the last, 18 months, mainly because of our PPC. And you've been doing it for probably about the same time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Probably not quite 18, probably a year to maybe 15 months at the most, I would say.
Okay. But I mean, our main reason for implementing it is you get a lead from, like, for instance, we got a lead in Alabama. I think we close on these. It was 2 houses, and we get a lead in Alabama, and we're not very good wholesalers in Alabama. We don't have a giant list, that kind of stuff. But we were able to convert that conversation to a Novation conversation. He set his wholesale prices. His wholesale prices weren't crazy out of this world.
Yeah.
So we were able, but we didn't have a disposition list, but we were able to convert that conversation to a Novation conversation. We called an agent, and if any of you want to learn more about Novations, go to my YouTube channel, Just for Flips. I had Rich Wonders on there. We did 3 different classes on Novations, and he talks really about, in one of the classes, he talks about, hey, just don't go find the $500 listing service, right? Go actually employ an agent, do some circle marketing, find an agent that's working in that area. That will, like, our agent took pictures for us, listed the property, knew which documents that we needed to fill out, right? And put it up on MLS. And we got an offer, and I think we made $57,000 on this deal that was a lead from Alabama. Now, when you're buying PPC leads, they could be using a VPN, or they could be traveling, and you get a lead, because we do Florida. So maybe he was in Florida when he punched in the number.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. So we were able to do that. So as you're working your leads, if you get one that's out of your area, or you get one, I mean, I would assume that your Novations have been, because they're probably priced. You're not, I mean, you like to buy stuff at 40 cents on the dollar.
Yeah, give or take, right around there. But no, exactly. That's the majority of the ones that we did. That's where they came from. It came from, just that client, or that seller that just is not willing to budge on what they will accept, in the sense of where they're at. And so that happens often. You know what I mean? It's very, very common. And that's where I think Novations obviously got extremely popular, is because when you had wholesalers that were just shooting for exactly like we do, say 60% on the dollar or whatever it might be. And then you have agents that are just shooting to list it. And the problem is that, a lot of times when agents are doing cold calls, or even, when they get in front of them, what are they doing to try to get that listing? They're telling them that they're going to be able to get them 110% of market value, right? So I think that middle ground where, okay, I don't want to take 60% on my dollar, and I also don't necessarily know if I trust this agent telling me that I'm going to get, my house is worth $5 and they're going to get me $550.
Right.
So I think that, and only that, most sellers are not dumb, where they know, okay, if I'm going to try to get a number like that, and this agent's telling me that, there's a good chance this property will sit on the market for a while. And a lot of the times with the leads that we get, and the same with you, these people want to move quickly. So there is kind of that like middle ground of trying to figure it out. And that's where Novations work out really well. Is because, and again, what it all comes down to, because I know this is about paperwork and the contracts and whatnot. The most difficult thing about Novations is that sales call of explaining to the seller what the Novation is, right? Because I mean, a lot of times, if you start bringing out the terms like we were just talking about before we hopped on, of what is it? Taking control of their, basically they're getting the rights to be able to decide what to do with their property. They get really scared. They kind of give you a lot of pushback. But as anything, whether it's a wholesale, whether you are an agent going on a listing appointment, whatever it is, it's always going to be about the delivery. It's always going to be about how you sell them, on whatever it is that you're trying to sell them. And in this case, trying to sell them on a Novation, you have to sell them on the important things of why it's going to make sense for them, which is going to be, potentially a quick closing, obviously still in the market, but you can basically tell them it's a net in their pocket of a certain number. So it can be, in a sense, might even be able to say it will be as is for them, because us jumping in as the middleman is going to take care of anything that happens from that point on. So again, in reality, it technically is not an as is sale, But again, because we're willing to take on and say, anything that repairs that come up, that's going to be on us.
Yeah.
Those are some of the big selling points for them. So again, that's just like, those are the types of things that you have to make sure that you do kind of explain to them. That's why they still want to do this. And then it all comes down to where it gets difficult, that the paperwork part of just making sure you have that good relationship with them. So it's, so it doesn't sound like you're coming out from left field and they have no idea what you're talking about, and just really kind of breaking it down for them.
Yeah. So so on our Novations, we kind of do, like I said, we use them for when we can't go to the wholesale price, it doesn't fit the $66.
Yeah.
And when you have an out of market property, it's still your lead. Obviously in Northern Arizona, I can go, hey, Luke, what's this worth? What can we wholesale for? But if it's in Colorado, I don't have the ability to do that. So I use Novation for the deal I can't get at the wholesale price, and then the out of market properties.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and like you said, when you're like yourself and you're spending money on these leads, just because they come in a different market doesn't mean, that you want to toss it, because a lot of times you're paying good money for these leads, and there's still a very good chance that it probably is a really solid lead. So
like I said, we made 57,000.
Yeah, exactly.
So all right, so let's get into the nitty gritty of the paperwork. You can still use your wholesale contract. Mm-hmm. It could be the 2-pager, the 3-pager, whatever you have. You're going to get 2 additional pieces of paper that you need. Number 1, you file a memorandum, and that just a memorandum that says, hey, I have a contract on this house. It basically is securing your position. So the title, actually, when you get the new buyer, you securing your position, because the word novation means to replace. So you're going to pull out your contract that you have with the seller, and you're going to put in your new contract, and then your memorandum is just basically explains to the title company you're making the difference between those 2 contracts, right?
You have interest in this property.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and like Luke says, you can still, like, it's all different ways of selling it. Like when we sell our Novation, we're like, hey, this is our wholesale price. We kind of anchor it there, right?
Yeah.
And then, I can't get there. Well, we do have this other program. And by the way, we don't approve everybody for the program, it's true. If it's down to the studs, it's a whole
that's not going to be a good fit to go on the market.
It doesn't fit for going on MLS. But if it's a decent middle house, like it's clean, but it's dated and all that kind of stuff.
Which again is a lot of these properties.
Yeah. Yeah. You get those tweeners, right? And you go, and then you anchor them with a wholesale offer. It doesn't work. And then you go, oh, I have this other program that not everybody's qualified to take, but your house is approved for it. So you read them down that ladder, and then, or take them down that ladder, and you're just like, and then, so you're going to file your memorandum, and then you're going to get an attorney in fact. And that attorney in fact is 1 page, and it gives you the right to sign the listing agreement for them and put it on the MLS. Now, you're still going to want your seller to fill out the spuds. This is what we do. You can have your own version. Have them fill out the spuds and still have them sign at the closing table. Now, you've explained that you've given them their net number, and like you said, like Luke said earlier, like now the commissions are in that spread. Any repairs on the bins are in that spread. So basically, you're kind of covering all those costs. Another thing is we say, hey, you've qualified this for this special program, and guess what? We are professional negotiators. We read contracts and do this stuff multiple times a month, like 30, 40 times a month, right? So we know what we're doing. We will handle all this for you, including all the Binzer items, all the negotiation on the Binzer items. We got it all taken care of.
Yep. And something that you have to make sure that is in that contract as well, because we've talked to other people that have done novations, and they've run into this issue. But again, it all comes down to the setting those expectations again. But is that, say that you do go and you list their property and you end up selling it, I'm hoping you're going to sell it for a whole hell of a lot more than what you're in a contract for, because you need to, just to make your spread. But a lot of times what you can hear is if people are not making the correct, not setting the correct expectations for that seller, that seller is going to come in and they're going to say, wait a second, you said that you're netting me 240, but you just listed my house and went on a contract at 300. Right. And so again, that's where it comes down to setting expectations of, yes, you are correct. I am netting you 240, but I'm paying realtor fees. I'm paying closing costs. I'm paying, for a Binzer, any work that needs to be done, I'm doing it. I repainted the house. And so, you have to kind of break those numbers down, because if you don't, then yes, you're going to put yourself in a tough spot where they're going to be pissed off. And again, what I was saying, though, back to that contract, make sure that you have it in there where you are protected if your seller is going to try to maybe cancel because of that. Because I've seen that happen far too many times too, where they say, no, well, why wouldn't I have just listed it at 310? And so that's something where I don't remember exactly what the wording was of our contract that we used. But it was just something along the lines of, that if the seller does, try to change their mind, after they already signed to this agreement, that, you can come after them legally.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't run across that yet. So everything we've done so far has been, smooth.
Yeah.
Once again,
we haven't run across either. I've just heard of it happening with people. So that's just to protect yourself.
Yeah. And it's just like, we even, like when we do these Alabama deals that are going to close for 57,000, we're like, hey, this is your number. This is what we're giving you. And he's like, hey, anything you get above that, great. Have at it. Yeah. And so it's a win-win. But setting the expectations. Now, when do novations not work? Novations were awesome, and everybody was on fire about novations, right?
Yeah.
But guess what? Next fall, set your expectations of how that might look. Your novation next fall could sit there for months.
Right.
So, I mean, it takes a real estate market that is moving. One thing
definitely does.
Yeah. It takes go to a mastermind, and all the novation guys last fall were like, oh, this kind of sucks because my novations, I told them that we would get this done in 60 days.
Yeah.
Well, if nobody's buying, guess what? Your novation doesn't work. If there's no market for your house, it doesn't matter.
Exactly like you said, because the majority of these people that are selling, they want a quick sale. And so what, setting that expectation, pitch, you're gonna have to pitch them on, okay, you try to push it out as long as you can for what they can agree to. Listen, I'm going to get you your funds. This transaction is going to be complete. When we first started doing novations, we started at 30 days. And then we're like, oh, hell no, that's not realistic. So then we started moving it back and back and back. And so then we started doing, 60 days, like you said. So that's what's tough. But like you said, if it's a slow market, you better set that expectation that I'm going to try to get you your money in 4 months or something. You know what I mean? Because 60 days might not be realistic.
I mean, right now, I would set expectations. Like I said, it's a slower spring than normal. I would set it between 60 days and 90 days right now. If you beat the clock, nobody's going to be upset.
Exactly.
But
no doubt about that.
And then if you're doing some novations next fall, you just maybe it's 90 to 120 days. But I mean, you have to have something, unless you're like, hey, you got that novation deal so low that you can chop the market. Like everybody's gonna be like on it, right?
Yep, exactly. And a lot of times you should be trying to do that anyway. I mean, I'm not saying by maybe 10% or something, but I mean, if you've got 4 active listings that are somewhat comps and they're all hanging out at 380 to 400, you should probably try to come in at 369, try to drop it 10K underneath, just so yours can be that one that everyone looks at and says, okay, well, this is the same as those, but it's 10K cheaper. I'm more interested in that one. So that's something that we absolutely always had to do as well, is exactly like you said. You don't want to sit there on the market in competition with a bunch of other, properties that are very similar. So,
I mean, that's basically it. I mean, like I said, if you missed any of Novation conversations, you can go over to Just for Flips. Rich Wonders is on there. He was great about discussing all this, but he didn't really want to talk about the paperwork because he wants you to JV with him, right? And if you're only going to do one of these deals, that's not a bad solution. Just to go JV with it. Maybe even Luke will JV it for you.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
Yeah. So
how that would look, we run the numbers, make sure it makes sense first, of course, and then we'll look at it from there.
Yeah, but like even I'll even help you JV. But if you want to get in the business, what we're trying to do is if you're in the business and you want to like add this to your tool chest, like you got your wholesale deal,
Yep.
you got your sub 2 deal, you got your Novation deal, and you got your listing, right? So those are kind of the 4 channels that we always talk on the Redroom. I mean, if you've watched us for any length of time, we talk about those 4 things.
Oh yeah.
So having the paperwork, and if you need the paperwork, you can go to justforflips.com, become a member. They're on there, or you can just email me and or DM me on Instagram, and I'll shoot over to the attorney in fact and the memorandum. So
heck yeah, I love it. I love it.
All right, so we just covered that. Before we got on here, you talked about a commercial deal that's coming from downtown. What's going on there?
Okay, so this is a deal. I don't even know if you know about it. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But Jack, so obviously, I talk to Jack every single day. Yeah. So we had a deal come through. I went on the appointment, and it's a little out of our realm of what's normal for us. It's a commercial deal downtown Phoenix. And so we were kind of, I reached out to Jack. I was like, hey, you and your dad, you guys are going to have a better idea than we will for something like this. But let's see what we can make work with it. So we ended up getting it. We ended up locking it up for a good price. And we're working on it right now. And again, like I said, I'm not even sure if you know this, but it sounds like could potentially just be waiting for EMD on this deal. And it sounds like we might have it sold.
Uh-oh. I always like to do deals that people can't get across the finish line. Just right?
Absolutely. And Chris, it's a direct to seller. It's a direct to seller on our end. So those are typically pretty nice.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you win at 40 cents on the dollar.
So we'll see how this goes, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. It sounds like we're on the final stretch right now of getting this thing locked up, getting EMD in, and then figuring out a deal. But maybe that's something that we can talk about once it's all finalized. So maybe next week or a couple weeks if we end up making it happen.
Yeah. All right. So just do a little recap. Novations are great for when you can't get the wholesale number or it's out of market.
Yeah.
You just gotta pitch the conversation and let the seller understand. You need 2 documents. You need a memorandum, and you need it's not the limited power of attorney. I just went brain dead.
Attorney in fact.
Attorney in fact, and then and then it's a way to help you convert those tweener deals into cash. That you would normally have thrown away. So,
absolutely.
And once again, we won't be on the Redroom next week. We will be live at the Phoenix RIA with Steve Trang. He's going to talk about sales systems, and then we'll be back. It'll be Tuesday of March Madness by the time we're back.
Yeah.
So you can come watch us because the games won't be on.
Heck yeah, I like it.
We got a comment. Is that David's brother?
Is who? David Meoff's brother?
I don't know.
Steve?
Meoff's brother? David Meoff. Is that David Meoff's brother? I don't know.
Is Chris? I wonder if Steve's asking if you are.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure. But anyway, one last bit of advice too is that when you are drawing up that contract for a Novation, make sure you are giving yourself a little bit of a buffer when you're running your numbers on that. Because once again, if you're running that, for let's say 30 days, and let's say that you're running it with just no money into it, that's not going to be realistic, because we all know in this market right now, when it is a buyer's market, they are asking for concessions. They are asking for everything you can imagine on a Binzer. So if you underwrote your deal with nothing into it and no concessions, that's going to come out of your pocket. So if you were running something tight, let's just say you're running it for a 10K profit or 15K profit, and then somebody hits you with with a 2% concessions, and then the Binzer comes back, there's a good chance that you're going to lose money on that deal. So just make sure you're underwriting it safe.
Yeah, for sure. Well, cool. Thanks for joining us on the Redroom. And there's what you need to know about Novations and the paperwork.
Heck yeah. I like it.
See you guys.
We'll see you in a couple weeks.